of the slightly less winds comparatively to what we have been experiencing. And they have been getting a good handle. We've been checking in, both of you and all our colleagues earlier this morning, that there has been ground that has been gained and taking advantage of these winds, putting out spot fires and those flare-ups. But unfortunately, the winds really tough to deal with all the way through the middle of next week. We're dealing with very dry conditions, low relative humidity, and that's what's leading to these extensive red flag conditions. If a new spark were to occur, a new ignition site, it could also create erratic fire behavior once again. It could spread new fires, and then the fire department will have another difficult time handling that. So we do have, again, those stronger winds coming in all the way through Wednesday. Red flag conditions, as I mentioned, will continue through the middle of next week. Here's a quick check of where the areas that are most vulnerable to these latest wind conditions. We have the high wind warnings along the local mountain areas, and that does pertain to the Santa Monica Mountains. Unfortunately, wind advisories also in place in and around the Palisades fire. And these are the winds coming out of the northeast. So these are the prevailing winds. But as we have touched on previously, that fires can create their own wind pattern, become unpredictable. And especially when we have embers that are flying in all directions, it can spark new spot fires that you can't forecast. But at least the prevailing winds, it gives us an idea of which direction the winds are going to be coming from. So northeast to southwest. It also is implicating areas along the Eaton Fire, where those similar wind conditions will be taking place. So currently, we do have wind advisories and high wind warnings in effect, and unfortunately, again, gradually getting stronger. Red flag conditions, I mentioned, all the way through Wednesday evening. When you combine gusty winds and low relative humidity, we've seen relative humidity down to the single digits. It has been incredibly dry. And speaking of dry, Southern California, the latest wind event, the one that we just witnessed, bringing that windstorm, is now the #1 driest water year on record. And that is according to the National Weather Service in San Diego, and that they just put that information out. So keep that in mind. We are in unprecedented territory in terms of dry conditions, and the vegetation continues to be the main fuel source for these fires. With the low relative humidity, it continues to, again, be very dry. Here's a look at our current wind conditions. Right now, 10 to 14 miles an hour, but those occasional gusts could reach eventually up to 40 plus. Some of the areas of the highlighted contours, these are the locations that are currently experiencing the heaviest winds. Malibu Hills, we're now clocking in wind speeds at 20 miles an hour. But out of the wind zone, we're talking about much of the basin, very quiet, light winds, but very smoky, unfortunately, courtesy of the active wildfires. Areas across the Inland Empire community and Orange County will also be dealing with their own wind issues. Corona now pushing to 26 miles an hour. Now, the wind event that's coming, we'll consider it, as I mentioned, the range of moderate to strong. But the hint of good news is the fact that we're not expecting hurricane force conditions as we had experienced last Tuesday and Wednesday. It's just unfortunately strong enough to keep everyone on their toes. Do not let your guard down. Here's a look at our wind futurecast. So areas, as I mentioned, the same vulnerable locations through canyons and passes downwind of our local mountains. That's just how the Santa Ana winds work. They go down and in and between our mountain passes, and it increases in strength, and that's why these always become the hot spots. So we're talking about the Cajon Pass, the areas through the San Gorgonio Pass as well, downwind of the Santa Ana Mountains, and of course, the vulnerable locations in between the Ventura, LA County mountain areas. Going into this tonight, should I say midnight, you could see those areas getting a little stronger, getting a little brighter. And unfortunately, these conditions don't relax. They don't change through the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. That is where we're expecting this latest round to be the strongest before relaxing Sunday afternoon into the evening. This is going to be another quick opportunity, a brief moment of a break, so firefighters can get another jump on that opportunity. But late Sunday, back to Monday, look how the winds increase once again. Another round of difficult conditions, and the Monday Tuesday, Wednesday, Santa Ana winds are expected to be even stronger than what we're going to be seeing tonight and into tomorrow. So just know there will be rounds of offshore conditions, and it will continue to be dry. No rain in the forecast until at least Thursday, Friday. We're looking at a 10 to 20% chance of maybe some precipitation, but right now the upper levels of the atmosphere not cooperating with any pulling any moisture. Going into Monday night, still those ferocious winds will continue to blow through Southern California. There's that Tuesday. I was mentioning Tuesday, same areas highlighted, could be a little stronger with gusts that could reach up to 65 miles an hour. Wildfire smoke continues to be a problem for a lot of folks here in Southern California as winds get stronger, relax, and it really helps to push the smoke in all directions. So hence a smoke advisory in place. Winds will continue and gradually get stronger. That continues to be the point. Here's a look at what's happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We're still dealing with this big ridge of high pressure, and the offshore winds are going to continue. We are watching this little should I say, a little dip in the atmosphere. This is the area of low pressure that's going to help support the offshore winds. And that's unfortunately going to be a problem. How dry? I had mentioned earlier that now Southern California, #1 in terms of the driest rain period on record. And records go back to 1850. So we're looking at 175 years that this is the peak moment. The range of January 9th was the cutoff in where they were measuring. Again, National Weather Service, San Diego. How much rain did we get since the beginning of our water year? Trace, 14 100ths inch of rain in November, 2 100ths of inch of rain in December. We have not received any real measurable rain since May. And going into January, January is our second typically wettest month of the entire year, and we have seen 0. Going into February, which is our wettest month of the year, we'll see how that pans out. But for right now, it appears to be very dry during this long period. So today through Wednesday, dry, windy, red flag conditions, critical fire weather. And on the map there, finally, we get a little bit of a break, a stronger onshore push, which means that we get air coming from the ocean to land, and that could tap into a little bit of moisture, bringing some light shower chances. But we're not enough to get us out of the danger zone, unfortunately, but the chance is there. We also talk about knowing that the winds are coming out of the northeast and those prevailing winds, there's that chance that when we get the onshore flow, when that system slowly starts to arrive, it's going to shift those winds and create another possible separate issues, because now you're looking at winds going the opposite direction, affecting communities in the opposite side of where the fire is currently active. So that's something that we're going to continue to monitor. Here's a look at our mountain communities, still red flag conditions, same winds in our mountain areas through our foothill communities. Those are the locations, again, vulnerable to 60+ mile an hour gusts. It is going to be a difficult next couple of days. Evacuation game plan, because we are still dealing with critical fire weather. You definitely want to stay on top of the forecast and all the information that Marla and Susan has been giving us. Have that meeting with your family. Have a designation point, have a strict communication plan in case you get separated. And we always talk about how to prepare your emergency kit. Obviously, people, life is the most important thing. Your pets, of course, your important papers, your prescriptions, your pictures. Have that at the ready. And we also mentioned put it in your car, have your car backed up into, again, your garage area. So that way, if you have to leave, your car is pointing in the right direction. Again, Susan, Marla, we're going to be dealing with rounds of Santa Ana winds. We've got to be on our toes.
So right now, so we're all on the same page. The red flag warning is extended, started already earlier than we anticipated, and will last through Wednesday.
Through Wednesday. Middle of next week.
Yeah, and then a slight chance of rain. We need that rain.
We'll take it,
Yeah,
but
we need it now.
But that also suggests that the humidity level will go up,
Yes.
does it not?
It absolutely does, and that's going to help. But when we talk about the winds coming out of the northeast, when we talk about the onshore flow, now we're talking about winds changing direction before we see the precipitation, and that could push winds and the fire in the opposite direction. That could create a whole set of new problems.
But sometimes when the wind shifts and it goes back into a burn area, there's nothing to burn. So that's helpful. Or there's less to burn. So that's helpful for the firefighters. I got to tell you, Samada, when I got up this morning and there was probably what you would call a breeze, and I got nervous because it looked like strong winds to me. I live in the San Fernando Valley, and so not, as the crow flies, not that far away from the Palisades fire. And we are looking at our live picture at a beautiful airdrop. And it's so nice to see so much pink. That's the Fosjack. And when you see those homes and their roofs are all pink, that's not because they have the adobe roofs or the red tile roofs. It's because they're covered in that pink Fosjack. So we do see that fire line there, the active fire, the leading edge of the fire as it's creeping through all of that vegetation.
And down below is the Mandeville Canyon area. We've been watching this while Sumata was giving her very in-depth forecast to keep all of us as safe as possible. And so now we're going to zoom out and you see that all of that white smoke.
Which is good news indeed, because the white smoke is the idea that there was a water drop, there was an attempt to tamp down the fire. So that's much better than seeing a black poof, a black column. Oftentimes that means it's hit like either a grove of very flammable vegetation, or because it's unfortunately hit a home. There was one home that burned this morning. So we're hardly out of the woods, but at least we're seeing some signs of progress.
And this flare-up happened in the 7 o'clock hour last night when we were, bringing you your coverage, and it looked really terrible.
Yeah.
Not that it still's terrible, don't get me wrong, but it looked really terrible, and it was really heartening to hear Gigi Graciette on the ground there this morning, and I believe it was with an LA County fire official who said, he's been in this business for 30 years, and he had never seen an air attack like many aircraft in the air, water drop after water drop after water drop, and what a difference it has made. Yes, we did lose one home today in this particular area as those flames crept toward Mandeville Canyon, Brentwood, and the 405. But, it could have been tremendously worse.
Well, it's all about the wind. It's all about how strong the winds are and whether or not these aircraft can the situation overnight Tuesday to Wednesday when the winds were hurricane force. You can't fly in that kind of situation or target where you want the Fosjack and the water to go. So unfortunately, those were the elements that created that conflagration and then that wide swath of damage that it's just so dramatic to see so much of the Palisades wiped out. I was on PCH on Wednesday, and I could not believe how many wide swaths of oceanfront homes were just burned to the ground. Nothing but ash and some rebar. That's what you saw.
Well, when we were just on that tight shot, you saw that beautiful water drop right there, and you saw all of those homes are so packed in together in the canyon. That's the other thing as we're now zooming in here. The in and out of Mandeville Canyon, pardon me, it's difficult.
Just one way in, one way out.
Yes, very difficult.
Yes.
So it's hard to get that evacuation process going. Look at that splash.
I've been under that before.
Yeah. So they're working hard, and we're here to bring you the very latest. Let's just run through all of the fires that we've been bringing to you so that we can get you caught up to speed.
Yeah, the numbers are quite dramatic. But first, just look at the overview of how many fires there are burning. Not all of them as active as the Palisades fire, but the Eaton fire, even though there is some containment, and the firefighters were saying that they are pleased with how things are going. But to have these other fires burning still, it's just unsettling.
Yeah, so here we are with the Palisades fire. And latest numbers are this: more than 21,500 acres burned, 11% containment, 5 people killed, more than 5,300 structures destroyed. And there are those new evacuation alerts primarily for the Brentwood, Mandeville Canyon, Encino neighborhood. So we've been reporting on that, and those still do remain in effect on this Saturday afternoon.
All right, moving on to the Eaton fire. I believe that's the next graphic. As we look at some older video, this is not live, but this certainly is a picture that we saw over and over for you as an anchor here on the desk, Marla, and me as somebody who was on the ground. Can we be more specific as to which video this is, which fire this is we're looking at? Oh, this is the Eaton fire. So this is the Eaton fire where you could. What's interesting about Altadena is they've lost thousands of structures as well. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's a really small community. That's what makes it even more tragic. They know everybody. They know their neighbors really well. It's a really small community. Also, there is a historically Black community there that have been there for decades. And now that those homes have gone down, it'll be very difficult for them. Their older generation, it'll be difficult to rebuild.
Yeah, and we were just hearing from Catherine Barger, the supervisor who represents the Altadena, Pasadena area in the 5th District. She made the point that her office is on it, trying to make sure that the permitting process to rebuild is expedited. It's such a daunting experience to have to lose your home and then to have to go through all of the bureaucratic red tape. Is just nobody should have to deal with that. So she's working to make sure that that process is simplified. In terms of the numbers for the Eaton fire, just over 14,000 acres, 15% containment there. And there are some new evacuation shelters that have opened as well, as we're looking at the mandatory evacuation zone for the Palisades fire, by the way. But those new Palisades fire evacuation shelters are this. See the information on your screen. Stoner Rec Center. This is on Stoner Ave, not too far, in fact, from us where we are at Fox 11 in West Los Angeles. They've also added Calvary Community Church. This is in Westlake Village on Villa Rocas. That has opened its doors for evacuees. And by the way, there is a community meeting at this Calvary Community Church that's happening tonight. If you want your questions answered, this is at 6:30 tonight on this Saturday evening.
So we also want to give you some information about the traffic, because we in Los Angeles, we know how challenging traffic can be in general, but then add this. You don't want to get in the way of the firefighting process. So that means limiting the amount of traffic that goes into that mandatory evacuation zone. So if you're driving southbound on the 405, you will find these off-ramps closed. Sunset Boulevard, the Getty Center, Skirball Center, Wilshire and Sepulveda off-ramps closed, as well as Olympic off-ramp. But that's basically describes my drive into the station there. And then also, for those of you who live in the evacuation areas, you may be wondering, where are you going to get your mail and your packages? Well, we have some information about that. The Altadena Post Office has been relocated to Pasadena, 600 Lincoln Avenue, already in effect for you, so you can go there for your mail. The Palisades Post Office has been relocated to Rancho Park at 11,270 Exposition Boulevard. That will start on Monday, January 13th. And mail is just so critical at this time period where you're trying to get information about your insurance and about any kind of claims. For Topanga residents, you'll head to the Santa Monica Post Office at 1653 7th Street. And that will start Tuesday of next week. Now, I want to tell you about somebody that I spoke to yesterday. Going back to the Eaton fire, there was a lovely woman that I spoke to who is missing, as she calls him, her person, her children's surrogate grandfather. He was a man that she met hiking, but really took to him, and she has been desperate to try to find him. Here's her story.
Mr. Frank, I've had him hiking on Echo Mountain, and we quickly formed bonds. And
Bethany Baird is talking about Altadena resident Peter Blinn.
went grocery shopping every week together. And I tried to get him to move with us, but he grew up in Altadena and didn't want to leave.
She now lives out of Boise, Idaho, and is going crazy trying to find the man who was like a surrogate grandfather to her 5 children.
His house burned to the ground. I have confirmation on that. He had a truck and he has left, but really shouldn't be driving. But I don't think he would leave Pasadena, La Cañada, Altadena area, would not get on a freeway.
She's got her former neighbors looking for the 82-year-old with declining mental capabilities.
I have a friend out right now with a backpack and a track phone with my phone number, my husband's phone number in it for him. If she finds him, she knows him also. But so I have people looking for him at the shelters.
Bethany wants to remain hopeful, but Blinn is a man who mostly is known as a loner, and he has no cell phone or computer.
I don't even know how he'll handle all of the finding housing without a computer, without a cell phone. Like, I will drive down there the moment I make connection and help him.
So Bethany told me that she has had other people check the shelters to see if he's registered, checked in there, and then I helped her actually. There's a family assistance center that's right across from the exhibit hall where everybody is being sheltered. And you can go in there. In fact, it was mentioned in that news conference earlier that if you're looking for someone, if you have lost contact with someone, that you can go to the family assistance center, write down your name, your contact information, the person that you're looking for. So I did that for Bethany. And then they gave me the advice that she should go to the Red Cross website because there is a process to register your name and his name or the person that you're looking for. The good news is we ran this another story about Lorraine Brathwaite, and she was found after we ran the story with Isaiah Brathwaite, her nephew. Then she turned up, and all along she was safe. She was staying with a friend, but as he points out, you know, when you lose your phone or you lose power on your phone, you might not know the numbers to call.
Yeah, you brought us this story yesterday from the Pasadena Convention Center, which is serving as the evacuation center.
Correct.
Yes,
and so I was very pleased to hear that after we ran that story that boom, she was found and she was safe. So those are the resources if you are missing contact. We're not saying that they're necessarily, hopefully not among the dead, but in the meantime, she is desperate. Bethany is desperate to make contact with Peter Blinn. So that's basically it. There's a lot of people that are frustrated.
And this is a little better news to report as we're looking live from Skyfox and you see all that white smoke. And yes, you do see the ridge lines there with the active flames, but we've been on the air with you and shown you a number of water drops. So the firefighting team behind this is doing exceptional work. Again, unfortunately, we did lose one home early this morning because of these active flames that did rage from the Palisades area. You know, of course, that's where this all started, closer to PCH, and then headed east toward the 405, and that's where we have landed in our coverage the last several hours. I want to give an update for LAUSD. They were out of class on Thursday and Friday, and on this Saturday, they are saying this to the students and parents: conditions have improved for a majority of areas across the region. We are working tirelessly on cleanup efforts to restore normal operations. Schools in the highest impact areas may remain closed due to adverse conditions. They will provide a final tomorrow. So if you have a student within LAUSD, I'm sure many of you do, you can await final word for whether or not there will be school on Monday. You'll be hearing from LAUSD. They're sending out emails and text messages and the whole nine, just to make sure that everybody within the district is well informed.
Meantime, I don't know if you mentioned this, but UCLA has announced that they will be remote only. UCLA, of course, on the eastern side of the 405, but at this stage, and because things are so dynamic, they have made the announcement that they will go to remote instruction only. Meantime, I just got a text message from Bethany